All right, people, that's 10 bells, which means it's the Brews at 10. A very good evening to everybody. Wolfpet, thanks a lot for joining us in the chat. Great to see you back again. Hope you're very well tonight. This is Monday, the 10th of June, 2024. This is the Brews at 10 on my left eye. I'm your host, Lefty. It's great to be here on what's going to be a regular weekday broadcast. Hope you've all got a brew. I certainly need one. And yeah, first day of the week, but still plenty to talk about. Thanks a lot to those of you who joined us on last night's Sunday night live stream as well. It's great to see a lot of you in the chat there too. Also, just a quick reminder to hit the thumbs up button and give us a share across your social media to help the broadcast reach a wider audience. Thanks a lot for being here tonight, people. So, where to start? Where to begin? There's a few stories I want to go through. Obviously, there have been a few things going on in the political world in the UK. Obviously, going to be focusing quite a bit on the general election as usual. We potentially have some new candidates for hot seats as well. That's to come up. The Lib Dems have released their manifesto. Going to be chatting a bit about that. Douglas Ross has finally given up the ghost in Scotland. Talking a little bit about that. Plus, as mentioned in the title, Tory and Labour Party pledges and how honest and direct they may or may not be. Spoiler alert, it could be the latter of those two. Plus lots more. Also, like I said, there's going to be a couple of hot seats. Going to be taking a look at some of the candidates there and why I think we could or should see some potential changes. But let us know how you're doing in the chat tonight. If you're not subscribed already, please do hit the subscribe button, and then just 60 seconds later you'll be able to join others in the chat, such as Wolfpet. A very good evening to you again. H. Lukill and Mithril, welcome to you too also. Hope you're very well. Yeah, I know this live stream's running concurrently with other streamers. Yeah, massive solidarity to No Justice as well. Mithril, thanks for that shout out in the chat as well. Great channel for those of you who don't follow. No Justice with Helena, and often guested, co-hosted by Kev as well. Great stuff. I'm a regular viewer of theirs myself, so please do check that out. Massive shout outs and solidarity to No Justice. Okay, I hope your Monday has been well so far. Thanks for joining us this evening once more. So the Lib Dems, as I mentioned, have been in a lot of the news today, and I did bring them up yesterday as sort of the stealth candidates, if you want to say. You know, they've not been out there very much since the last election, but I do think they are going to make some significant gains without really saying or doing much up until now. And Ed Davies made these promises, pledges, etc. Of course, I still throw the Lib Dems in with Labour and the Tories as being part of that trifecta of neoliberal mainstream parties in England. That is, the SNP obviously massively outnumber Lib Dems in Parliament at the moment. But that notwithstanding, phrase I don't like to use too much. But as I said, Davies now come out, and he's also the first of the mainstream parties to stick his neck out on the issue of leaving the EU, and said that he'd like to put forward a plan to rejoin the EU in the long term. Let's just take a quick look at an article. So lots going on today. I'll quickly skim through this, and then I do just want to quickly raise your spirits with something I put together. It's basically my favourite moment from the recent seven-way leaders / representatives debate, which you'll no doubt remember. Just bear with me 1 sec while I bring up this screen. Right, here we are. So there's Ed Davey. Ed who, a lot of people might be saying. Sir Ed Davey, should say. Apparently, these days, the two main opposition leaders, as it were, Knights of the Realm. Won't go through his full manifesto, just, well, pick out a few finer points. So they pledged an 8 billion package for health and care services. He did talk a lot about the NHS in this clip. It seems to be the focus of his. He's obviously looking to gain a lot of neoliberal ground, the left side of the right, as it were. I don't go for centrism. I'm not one for that as a political term. The same with moderates. I think we're all more than aware, most of us here, that those who claim to be such centrists, etc., when it really does come to the crunch, they just really neoliberal right wing, but they don't really want to have to say it. They want to have this appearance of a more socialist or liberal in the British sense. Sorry, in the American sense, not in the British sense. A more socialist attitude. But then all you end up with is the NIMBY lot and so on and so forth. It all sounds good coming from them. It looks good on paper, but when it comes down to it, they always favour and side with the left. So at the launch, Ed Davey spoke about the importance of carers, citing his own experience of being a carer for his disabled son and for his mother. The party said proposals for government will be funded by reversing tax cuts for banks and closing tax loopholes exploited by the wealthiest individuals. Davey's been pretty open about the chances of obviously gaining a majority in the election, depending on how many seats they do gain, and I think that they will make gains in seats that Labour are expecting to go to them. Seriously expecting quite a few of them to go to Lib Dem, to be honest. Not that I think that's going to bring any real change, as my main point here is going to be about, basically, if we come down to a situation where it is a hung parliament and the Lib Dems have the say, we all remember what happened last time in 2010. So I certainly wouldn't be in favour of that happening again. There's often talk of, you hear the phrase, such a party will take us back to square one, used by the Tories or whomever. But in this case, that really would be taking us straight back to 2010. But I do think, just being realistic, that is what's going to happen in a lot of seats. So they're around about 11 at the moment, and I think they could at least double that. I would not be surprised to see them with 25 or more seats in a month's time. So he did this big announcement at Thorpe Park. There's lots of pictures going around of him on rides, having lots of fun there, as you can see, having a bit of a jolly to himself. There was more electioneering from Keith as well, which didn't go particularly well. That's another thing I'm going to be talking about. There's been a clip doing the rounds today where he was attempting to interact with the public, something that never goes well. I'm sure that you all remember his attempt to speak to two people on a pier a few years ago, which ended in disaster, and an untold number of memes came out of that. So a few other things from the manifesto. He's saying that care workers are going to be paid at least £2 above the minimum wage to help tackle vacancies. £20 per week increase to carers allowance, which supports people looking after someone with an illness or disability at least 35 hours a week. These are all obviously decent policies in themselves. The chances of them actually being implemented under Lib Dem are obviously speculative. I think they know that they can perhaps afford to overstate their intentions by the chances of how likely they are to get into government. Although, you know, to be fair, you could say that about any party, I guess. So a huge focus on Currers. They've obviously been under huge pressure under the Tories. He's trying to go for that neoliberal ground, the left side of the right, as I said, and it's almost slim, not slim pickings, like low hanging fruit when it comes to criticising what the Tories have done to the NHS. It's not that difficult. As I said before, he's not had to say that much, and I think a lot of people, when they go in the ballot box, not that this is what I'm going to be thinking by any stretch of the imagination, but they will probably be considering it, depending on where they live. I think a lot of those marginal seats where the Tories got in by just a few hundred votes in a lot of cases at the last election, potentially you could see these sort of seats going to the Greens. And he's saying that he's going to increase capital gain tax, etc., etc. I mean, we all, just to remind you about the 2010 Lib Dem manifesto that was littered with socialist policies. I dare say that Nick Clegg's manifesto was the most socialist on there out of the so-called main parties, as it were. But then again, look what happened. That all went out of the bloody window once they got into bed with the Tories. Not that I was completely ranting and raving about Ed Miliband at the time either, but I do often think what it would have been like if Labour and Lib Dem and other parties had got together to keep the Tories out. So now here we are, a decade and a half practically down the line, and people are screaming to get the Tories out. But we all know that that's not enough. We have to keep out the right wing in all its guises. Just quickly pop back over to the chat. Odin Allfather, thanks a lot for joining us again this evening. The only way to send a message is to not vote for any of the main parties. That's true. I've been quite open about my intentions without trying to promote or single out one particular party, but definitely ruling out the main parties. All three of them over the last 15 years, it's been evident, apart from obviously during the Corbyn years, with Labour, just how establishment they are. Whatever they put in the manifestos, like Lib Dem have today. So I've not actually had a chance to have a look at the full manifesto. Just wanted to point out the significance of that because of this kind of stealth approach that they're using, and I do have to be honest and think it could be fairly effective in a lot of areas. I'm not going to subject you to Nick Robinson's interview with Sunak this evening. He had to admit to a lot of things. Briefly is all I'll say. Things such as it being more difficult to buy a house under the Tories. Yeah, no shit. With the landlordism, the ongoing increase in rents, etc. Just quickly want to skim through one or two more articles. As I mentioned, Douglas Ross has resigned as leader of Scottish Conservatives. Let's just very briefly dive into that one. There he is. So a bit of good news. These election campaigns can be quite frustrating. They certainly are from my perspective. I mean, just the sort of performances you see, the jumping through hoops. We all remember the last one. We haven't had any diving into fridges or whatnot yet, but I'm sure there's plenty of that to come. And so many resignations, so many Tories deciding to jump before they're shoved. Although in this case it says he will carry on in the role until after the election and will also resign as a member of Scottish Parliament if he is re-elected to Westminster. I'm not sure about the chances of that. It follows a row over Ross standing as a candidate for Aberdeenshire North and Moray East instead of David Dingwid, who has been in hospital and was in effect deselected. So a bit of good news for the Scots there. That's just one less Tory to worry about, although I do believe they only have the one seat. Not doing terribly well up there at all. And don't let the door hit you on the way out, Douglas. The last of these I just want to quickly bring up. The Reform UK candidate has apologised for saying that Britain should have appeased Hitler and stayed neutral during the Second World War. If you were on the stream last night, you might remember I brought up another Reform candidate who was interviewed at an airport and said that he was startled to see the amount of people coming through, neglecting to realise that they were tourists. Ian Gribbin, that's he. Oh, sorry, I forgot his name. Reform candidates aren't necessarily worth paying too much attention to. You'll have to forgive me for that. I'm sure you'll find it in the bottom of your hearts. But he said, quotes, the country would be far better if it had, quote, taken Hitler up on his offer of neutrality instead of fighting the Nazis in World War II. So he's from Bexhill and Battle. He also wrote online that women were the sponging gender and should be deprived of healthcare. These are real savoury people that they've got in Reform. I'm still fairly confident that they're not going to win a seat. No massive changes to that in terms of the hot seats. We're going on to some potential new ones a little bit later on, as I mentioned. So they're from 2022, just a couple of years ago, on the Unheard magazine website. He said Churchill was abysmal and apparently praised Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, he's probably, we know that Farage, for example, has had donations from Russians and other nefarious characters in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me that members of Reform UK, I think, is to give them the full shitty title, but there you go. Let's just see what Tice and Farage there had to say about this. I think this is a very short clip.
There's a story the BBC are running today about one of your candidates, Ian Gribbin in Bexhill and Batley, who wrote that the UK would have been far better if it had taken Hitler up on his offer of neutrality.
Just want to pause there quickly, coming in. Well, first of all, quickly thank H. Lukill for that gifted membership. Thanks a lot for that show of solidarity this evening. Hope you're very well. And yeah, Jeremy, if you want to click the perks button, you might have to refresh the stream for that to come up, but you'll be able to see the perks now available to you. Thanks again, H. Lukill, for that one. I also want to point out Richard Tice's hands. I have this almost semi-obsession when I observe politicians with the way that they use their hands and their arms. They have this trained behaviour. It's no coincidence that they use the type of gestures that they do. Regular viewers will know that I'm particularly not a big fan of what I call the drumming one, or where they appear to be like grasping something in a fist and then making that gesture. You can't see the gesture I'm doing because I don't have a webcam. I don't use a webcam at the moment, but I could potentially be doing in the future. I don't know. Might be putting a poll up about that, but that's another matter entirely. The way he's got his hands there, it's supposed to be expressing, listening and concern and also a slightly studious look. But I just think, in the case of a lot of politicians, it's a dead giveaway. It's a dead giveaway. Um, it, it would have some effect on certain people. You always notice about Farage as well. He has this thing with his hands across the belly. With people like Blur and Cameron, it's the palms open thing, but more up like in front of the chest, waving the hands in front of the chest. These are the gestures, but the one that gets my goat the most, like I said, is the waving of the fist. And now, like TV, this is like filtered down into the media as well. A lot of presenters have started to use this, and it's echoed down into mainstream media as well. And I have to admit, a lot of the time, it really does get on my tits. So, yeah. Let's see what they've got to say.
Instead of fighting the Nazis, and that women were the sponging gender. I just wondered if you thought he was a suitable candidate, and have you got a problem with some of your candidates?
Not as big a problem as the Green Party. We've had to suspend 20 of their candidates for putting out really vile...
Boom, straight in with the deflection, straight in with the whataboutism when asked a direct question about one of his candidates. Where I've paused the clip there. Farage looks a bit half-cut, although I'm sure most of the time he's stood behind a lectern. He usually is. With Tice looking on quite smugly there. However, the first thing he wanted to do was, and he goes on to try and attack them for so-called, you guessed it,
anti-Semitic tweets.
Yes, the old critique of Israel, the old AS bullshit. He just had to go straight into his wheelbarrow full of manure and haul that one out, tip that in front of the press.
I think, do you know something? I think every party will suffer because it was a snap election. We had put in place, you put in place a big vetting program, but we ran out of time.
Yeah, that's the reality.
It's just, no, Tice. The bloody reality is that you have just been questioned on one of your candidates in an upcoming general election where people select members of their parliament, and he has made such comments about Britain's actions in World War II, saying that we should have been more favourable towards none less than Adolf Hitler, and made some utterly disgusting misogynistic comments as well. And now all they've ended up trying to do to distract the press is say, well, we did this other thing once, didn't we, Richard? Oh, yes, we did, Nigel. Yes, we did. We did indeed. And speaking of which, sorry to have to highlight this again, but although it's with good reason this time, he's not just making an appearance on a panel show or whatnot, he's actually getting his name dragged through the mud, and rightly so. I'm not sure if this book is still available on Ladybird. You'll have to check that out for yourselves. Apologies, I can't credit the person who came up with this. I got this off of one of the social media accounts. So apologies, I always do like to give credit where it's due, but that really is a really good parody bit there. Just the last little bit of this clip.
There's a story the BBC are running today about one of your candidates,
which seems to have decided to go straight back to the beginning, but I'll skip through.
The reality, we made it clear to all candidates, and if people do inappropriate things, say daft things, then of course we'll look at it and...
That's a bit more than daft. It's not just daft. This is beyond daft. And this, both of you pricks, especially this prick the other day on TV, was laying into Sunak for leaving the D-Day ceremonies early. Yes, obviously he was right to have a dig with him about that, but my point here is double standards. Jesus wept. Obviously, we've all heard the thing going round. Don't know why Nigel Farage is celebrating commemorating the D-Day landings because his side lost. Wankers.
Investigate it, and that's what we do. But what we're doing is pushing on with an agenda, and the reason that we're going up in the polls is that actually people like the message.
Nah, I'm not buying that. I think you're right there, Mithril. He's feeling threatened by the Green Party. That's why he had to immediately, viscerally launch into an attack on them. They keep going around saying that they're third in the polls. I guess that's just another reason why I take polls with a pinch of salt. I'm sure that UKIP were riding quite high in the polls once upon a time. Not being able to remember any specific statistics off of the top of my head, I should say. But that's all hollow nonsense coming from these two. Just really hope that this being, in Farage's case, his 7th attempt, that they do finally choose to do one. But if there's any money to be shilled, no doubt Farage will still be around. He's tried to break through into America. Well, how much we see of him might depend on the outcome of the election there. Just another quick one whilst we're on the topic of the far right and toad-faced, whatever he's called, Nigel, mentioned snap elections during his response. Macron, the French president, has also called a snap election on account of a recent indication that the right-wing parties over there might do quite well, so he's trying to nip that in the bud. But I, for one, am particularly concerned about the overall rise of the far right in Europe. Countries such as Italy, Hungary, Poland, we're seeing it all over the place. Obviously, here in the UK, we need to keep people like Farage and Tice out. I'm going to be going into a clip that was on TV earlier in a little bit more detail about that and why that's so concerning, but also why that's another reason to avoid voting for Labour in the upcoming general election here in the UK. All right, so that's all. Let's get into a few clips now. As said earlier, just want to reminisce from the 7-way election debate the other day and pick out my favourite moment. I'm thinking of putting this together in another very short video clip. Just want to make sure that that's uploaded, and this is one for the ages, whatever the outcome of the election, but I think this will sum it up pretty well as we remind ourselves of a section of Penny Mordaunt's closing statement and the lone clapper that was there. I hope you remember this one from last night, but I could watch this all day at the moment. It really does sum it up for me. God.
We will cut your taxes. We will protect your pension. And we will defend this nation. For a more secure future, vote Conservative.
God, just once
We will
more.
cut your taxes. We will protect your pension. And we will defend this nation. For a more secure future, vote Conservative.
Oh, I'm sure it's on like The Simpsons or Family Guy or South Park or something, and there's a few situations like that, and then there's just one guy at the back, yay! Oh God, I'm just picturing, I'd actually quite like to find out who that was who was clapping, because I'm just picturing some absolute, I don't know, junior Tory boy type person. Who's actually still doesn't realise that they're going to take an absolute pasting, an absolute battering at the election, and he's still full of piss and vinegar and thinks that they can actually do really well. He probably watches her stand up and fight video over and over again, but I was actually, Mithril, I was considering splicing that bit from, oh, what's he called in America? The Republican. But yeah, and then he had to say, please clap, because he thought he was building up to this great statement that the whole audience would be getting in on, but alas not, and then having to prompt the audience like that. It's unbelievable. Just once more, then I'll move on. I promise.
We will cut your taxes. We will protect your pension. And we will defend this nation. For a more secure future, vote Conservative.
Oh, God. You could just at the initial part of the clapping, you can hear the confidence as though he was sure that dozens, scores of members of the audience would join him in a massive applause to support Penny Mordaunt, leader of the House of Commons, and also shithouse Tory. But no, he just, shot down. Just absolutely shot down. Unbelievable. Not unbelievable at all. Okay, so I just had to interject with that one. But just one final word on Reform UK. I just want to head over to a clip from Mick Lynch, who I think sums it up particularly well here.
Farage is a very dangerous politician. I think he's a racist. I think he's a charlatan.
He would push back on that if he was sitting here.
Well, he'd be entitled to. But from what I've seen, he's convinced me that he's a racist. And he's prepared to pay with racism and xenophobia and nationalism in a very dangerous way. And what he's trying to do is pull the Tory party to the right. I think that will destroy the Tory party historically. And it's a really dangerous position.
But
he'll do nothing
on the
for
Brexit
working
question.
people.
Okay, just want to go over that quickly again, after playing it in full. Yes, it was Jeb Bush. Yep. So many of the Bush family in US politics. Sorry, just reading some of the comments. Why she changed her voice to sound like Kirsty Walk? Right, yeah, what was I doing? Okay, I was going to go through the clip. Yes, in a more granular, comprehensive fashion. Here we go.
Farage is a very dangerous politician. I think he's a racist. I think he's a charlatan.
He would push back on that if he was...
Okay, no, Mick Lynch is quite right here. I do have to point out that she was very quick to come in and almost try and make Farage's defence for him in his absence, obviously. Oh, but he'd refute that if he was here. Of course he would. But are the BBC representatives for Farage now? Could they not get through someone making a statement about a third party who wasn't present without having to interject and sort of solicit on their behalf, as it were? Or is there some sort of potential bias going on there? I'm not sure. Anyone who doesn't think that Nigel Farage is a racist, I think, should seek medical attention immediately.
Sitting
Well,
here.
he'd be entitled to, but from what I've seen, he's convinced me that he's a racist, and he's prepared to pay with racism and xenophobia and nationalism in a very dangerous way. And what he's trying to do is pull the Tory...
Is correct. I want to point out, although he doesn't speak in this clip, how awkward Piers Morgan looks. And this is Victoria, Derbyshire, I believe. Leaning in very intently. And there's something else I want to highlight towards the end of this clip as well.
Party to the right. I think that will destroy the Tory party historically, and it's a really...
It's one of these, he's speaking the truth, and there are a few of these today, and the BBC getting quite notorious for this now. As soon as someone starts talking sense, there's a very quick interjection, and they'll try and take it away onto a different subject or a different area of the subject. Basically, they essentially just need the guest, whomever it may be, to stop talking. And this is what happens right here. Check this out.
Dangerous position.
But don't you,
he'll do
on
nothing
the
for
Brexit
working
question,
people.
God, I can't think of it. Stop Lynch. Stop him talking. Brexit. Talk about Brexit. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. He's seriously on point there, Mick Lynch. We need to be completely aware of any threat that's coming from the far right and act against it. We're always so, when the flag shaggers come out, and we're always so bloody patriotic when it comes up to things like D-Day anniversary and other historic conflicts. But when it comes to the real lessons learned, they just have the bloody heads in the sand. And like Mick Lynch is trying to point out here, this is how you get far right countries that could potentially escalate to a global military situation. Well, they don't want to know because it's not nice to hear. It's not easy listening, but it's the cold hard truth. And I think the BBC would rather just try and keep people happy, content, contained, pacified, if you want to go that far, without trying to upset them too much with the actual reality of what is going on. That's just the way I see it with my left eye. Yeah, you're right, Ordinal Father Morgan does look like he thinks Lynch has a gun in his pocket, but I guess perhaps not a literal one, a figurative one. And I'd love to see, obviously, they've exchanged words before, but if we could have something like that in the run-up to this election, that'd be great. Pointed out last night as well how disappointed Unite are with Labour at the moment as well, not backing their manifesto, not officially endorsing it, as it were. And it's for reasons such as this that I'm about to show you. Liz Kendall trying to defend why Labour won't really be investing in anything. To try and win this election, they're trying to promise that there won't be any tax rises, any sort of any taxes on the wealthy. Will be far too little, far too late, as far as I'm concerned. But also why there's going to be a lack of investment in the services that have been cut so much under the tenure of the Tories, and it's just a pathetic offering, really, considering the fact that the electioneering at the moment and campaigning, you should really be showing people that you can offer them something, and all that they're doing is dillying up excuses as to why they won't. They're already using phrases such as difficult decisions and tough choices, which we all know what that means. It just means more austerity, while the wealthiest in society get an easy ride and see their profits increasing even further. So this concerns school meals, and it's a very simple social policy, something that everybody can get behind. It's not controversial whatsoever, but Liz Kendall is throwing up these kind of excuses as to why Labour can't get behind that, and it's just so uninspiring.
What about free school meals? If you're going to give children breakfast at school, shouldn't they all be getting free lunches too?
Well, won't make spending commitments we cannot keep. I've seen the consequences of that by the Tories after the disastrous Liz Truss mini budget, throwing around money they didn't have, and it was working families that paid the price. We're not prepared to do that. That's why.
So where's this change going to come from? Where is this change going to come from? What, you thinking that by saying that people think that you're honest, or there's no money left, there's sod all left in the pot, you don't know what public borrowing is, you don't know what the Bank of England is, you don't know what actual proper taxes on the wealthy are? No. you're just going to keep on going the same way that the Tories have been doing and try and make pathetic excuses like these.
We've been very clear and specific about what we will do, where we'll get funding from, and sometimes there are tough choices there, but we think that's the right approach, good for parents, good for children.
No, they're not tough choices. They're not tough choices. It staggers me sometimes to see what the Labour Party has become. And this is Liz Kendall. After all, you quite correct me, Thrill, there in the chat. I share those sentiments with you about Liz Kendall. What can you say? Let's just get through
Children
this.
and good for the economy.
Economy, the economy is the yardstick, that's the god that they must all bow to. So where is this change going to come from then? We're looking at 2 decades of austerity, 2 decades of public funding cuts in services, essential services decimated, and it snowballs, and it snowballs, and it snowballs. People as a society become less healthy. That puts more strain on the NHS. The massive increase in mental health cases that we have at the moment, a true crisis there, and the lack of carers. So many families, as I mentioned so many times before, struggling to put food on the table, rip-off energy bills being a large contributor to that, and the least that you can do to unburden these families is to give the kids, a free breakfast when they go to primary school. And Labour are basically telling people to fuck off. These are basic socialist policies. There's no way that Labour can be described as a democratic socialist party at all anymore. Absolutely not. And just to add further insult to injury, which brings me on to the first of our 2 potential new hot seats in the constituencies that could be worth keeping an eye on, the ones to watch, as it were. North Durham, Luke Akehurst. I'm sure you all know who he is. But he's going to be standing. He's one of these NEC members who's been parachuted in, while others, including those previously elected, have now been deselected. And in this whole Starmerism, basically. Accidentally said Stalinism there. That would have been a terrible mistake there. Just have a sip of my brew. Don't want to make any more accidental errors like that. So, yeah, he's been apparently lined up, which is what Labour are thinking for that seat. And he's put out a campaign vid, which, I mean, we're going to have a look at it, but just before we do, how can I best prepare you for what you're about to see if you've not come across this release today? Considering this party wants to get into government, as far as effort goes, it's it's pretty bad. It's pretty mundane, uninspiring, and if you know Luke Akehurst as a person and the way that he's acted against the Labour Party, of course, I can't help but resist. I can't help but go into that, I should say, which we'll be doing after we watch this clip. But prepare yourselves, because bearing in mind he's taken this seat from Kevin, what's his name? the former Labour MP in Durham North. It's pretty appalling. It's pretty appalling, and there's a couple of places I'll need to pause it just to highlight as well.
I make North Durham the centre of my political life, in fact the centre of my whole life. I've played a leading role in changing the Labour Party into a party that can win again. Communities like Stanley and Chester Street and the...
They could have won again if it wasn't for arseholes like you. Jesus wept. The people who hindered Labour from winning the last election are turning around and trying to tell you that they've made it into a winnable party again, a successful party again.
Villages here desperately need a Labour Party that's common sense and can win elections, and I'm proud to have played.
This was the best take, remember? Yeah. Actually, I want to go back. I'm going to just take it back to the beginning, something I couldn't help but notice earlier. Just considering this is an official release by the Labour Party, I'm assuming that they have some at least fairly competent people who put these sort of videos together. Nothing that they can do about the subject, obviously Luke Akehurst. But if you're just watching the background, I want to point out a specific continuity error that just on top of having to look at Luke Akehurst and his stupid just returned from Mercury fucking face. Check this out.
I make North Durham the centre of...
I spy with my left eye something beginning with shite.
...of my political life, in fact the centre of my whole life.
You see your man who walks in from the right hand side there. He walks from behind that bush or tree that you can see on the right, and then as it zooms in on Akehurst, he disappears.
I make North Durham the centre of my political life, in fact the centre of my whole life.
He's there, and then he's gone. Where's the guy gone? He's
the
just...
Labour Party.
Hey, maybe he's done a U-turn. Maybe he just did a U-turn as it zoomed in. I'm sure you know a few things about U-turns, Akehurst. Your boss certainly does, that's for sure. Very discreet microphone you've got on there as well, by the way.
Into a party that can win again. Communities like Stanley and Chester Street and the villages here desperately need a Labour Party that's common sense and can win elections. And I'm proud to have played a role.
Just stand there and look really confident like you're going to win, Luke. That'll do. Yes, we'll do it here. This will look fantastic. I'll look like a demigod to the people of Durham. Oh, how stupid do you know? Is Wonder Gupta in the chat? I'd love to get Wonder Gupta's 2 cents on this. I know that she's from the northeast, and would love to get your 2 cents on that if you're listening as well. This is
in getting Keir Starmer into a position where he's hopefully going to be the next Prime Minister of Britain. I want to be part of that Labour government that's going to change Britain, but I want to be part of it for a special type of community like North Durham, a place where poverty and inequality are still real issues that need to be tackled. And that's because
you stopped your own party from winning the general election 5 years ago.
Reflects my own background. I've spent my whole life involved in campaigning to get Labour governments elected, campaigning to make sure Labour is elected.
Except in 2017, 2019.
And in public service as a councillor. And now I want to be part of an incoming Labour majority that can fight for those communities and get the best possible deal for them. It's absolutely outrageous the way that communities like this have been left behind by 14 years of Tory cuts and austerity. They lied about levelling up. They haven't levelled up at all in any of these towns. In fact, they've neglected them and allowed the town centres to fall into decline in very proud places that desperately need investment. My motivation is to make sure...
Have you ever started a job and you have these god-awful, training videos that they make you sit through. I've seen some of those in my time that have had not only better production values than this, but are also a lot more engaging. God damn it, I hate this guy.
Sure that the next generation of kids don't see their mums and dads having to make those choices, see their mums and dads have good, fulfilling lives with jobs that pay well and good.
Yeah, you can hear his very strong Durham accent breaking through there. Another one, I'm not going to do the Geordie accent like I did a couple of weeks ago. I'll spare you some impressions for now. But just again, a classic example of them being thrown in there from hundreds of miles away and expected to gain victory because it's just a safe seat, isn't it? It's a sure bet. Please, people, really hope that the electorate, the population of this country, come forward and reject this tactic en masse. Anywhere you see someone being parachuted in. I've heard suggestions that there should be a certain time period where people have lived within the constituency or within a certain radius of it before they're allowed to stand as a candidate. And I'd, of course, be completely behind ideas like that. Paul Mason, obviously, I've mentioned before. He's another example in North Islington, which is another one of the hot seats. So, some of these seats are really hot. They're almost as hot as whatever Luke Hayhurst has been standing next to recently with that complexion. Maybe it's just a whiskey nose, strawberry nose. Who knows?
Public services that look after them when they're sick and educate their children when they're at school and provide the level of policing to make sure that they can live in security and not to have to worry about crime or antisocial behaviour. I'm absolutely passionate about making sure that people in Chesterley Street, Stanley and the villages in the constituency have an optimistic future, have the best lives for their kids, aren't faced with terrible, difficult choices, but actually...
Where to begin? Well, it's people like this that threw Corbyn under a bus and absolutely blew the tyres off of the democratic socialist movement that was romping through the country. And I won't play the rest of the promotional video. You get the gist. So far. So he's sitting on someone else's majority of around 5,000 at the moment. I know that people in the northeast are wise to these kind of people. I know that they're wise to this kind of tactic. I know that as sick as they are of the Tories, the northern counties having suffered the most with public cuts and lack of investment under the Tories. I hope they will reject this en masse. If there's anyone else in the chat, please let us know if you're from the northeast or if you're from this particular constituency. Let us know what you think, or if you're watching on a replay. Speaking of which, thanks a lot to everyone for joining us in the chat this evening. Great to see you all tonight. If you're not subscribed already, please do hit the subscribe button. You can join everyone else in the chat there for just 60 seconds later. Please do share our content around as well on your social media to help the channel reach a wider audience. You might also like to consider becoming a member. For just 99p you can get some great perks. Please do check that out. Or if you're watching on a replay, please do consider using Super Thanks or the Buy Me a Coffee page. And Super Chats are active, of course, as always, if you'd like to get my attention with a question or statement in the chat. Great to see you all this evening. So, Luke Hayhurst, let's just share some memories and let you know a bit more of what he's about. As I said, he's a member of the NEC, but basically what you're going to bear witness to in this upcoming clip is essentially him admitting that he endorsed members from other parties in order to hold Labour back in recent elections. And not all, this isn't some sort of, you see the old-fashioned investigative reporter documentaries where they have the hidden mic and the hidden camera and whatnot, and a sort of secret conversation in a bar or while one person's giving another person a lift. This is straight up gloating about it openly on some sort of open video conference call. Mithril, thanks a lot for those 5 gifted memberships. Awesome show of solidarity there. Hope the 5 of you enjoy your perks. Hit the button to check out the exclusive content, static emojis, etc. To the 5 of you. And I will, of course, be giving a shout out to all of the members during the streams as well. So you'll have your names added to that list next time around, as well as at the end of any long play videos. Thanks again for that, Mithril. Octomimic, you're in Whitburn. Just quickly. Just bear with me 1 second, folks. Okay, yeah, that's South Tyneside, right? Yeah, just checking that out now. So, what do you think about that, Octomimic? Has this parachute candidate been brought to light there in the local media? Are people talking about it? Let us know. So this clip says a lot, says all you need to know about Luke Akehurst and why people in Durham definitely shouldn't vote for him in the upcoming election. He's an absolute rotten bastard to the core as far as I'm concerned, and this is what he had to say.
There is the leader's office and the leader. There's the general secretary and the people running the party headquarters. And there's the National Executive Committee. And if you hold all 3, you can pretty much get the Labour Party to do whatever you want it to. So he obviously won the leadership. What was unexpected was there was another campaign going on. I'm just pausing because it says my internet connection is unstable. There's another campaign at the same time with a more restricted electorate that I was in the background running the campaign for with my Labour hat on, which is the National Executive Committee, and the 2 moderates won that election. So it changed the control of the National Executive. So there's now, it's very finely balanced, but Starmer can normally win. And then he used the fact that he could win on the National Executive to get this guy that I've told you is good on anti-Semitism and is basically from a sort of Tony Blair background, David Evans, in as the General Secretary, and get out Jenny Formby, who's a kind of arch Corbynite.
Can you believe your ears? Can you believe your eyes? Well, I can. I mean, I was a Labour member myself when all this was going on. I was there while it all happened, and it's absolutely bloody revolting. Do not elect this man. I implore you, if you are within his constituency that isn't even his, I implore you to keep this man and the Tories out of office. That's all I can say about that. How old is Luke? He's 456. Yeah, Vicky. He's 456 years young. But I'll be honest, he doesn't look a day over 372. He needs to cut down on those holidays to Mercury. That's what's really ruining his good looks. Okay, right. Let's get rid of this goddamn shite hawk and let's try and cheer ourselves up a bit. Let me know what you think about this becoming a potential hot seat as well in the chat or the comments. I really am thinking about sticking it on the list. There's another potential hot list to come on tonight's stream as well. But I do want to take you over to another hot seat, another active hot seat, North Islington. Just the latest from Jeremy Corbyn's campaign. He's obviously well backed locally. I've got no doubt that you're going to get a great popcorn moment there watching him trounce Paul Mason. I hope that we get to see live footage of his victory speech with Paul Mason in the background there. I might even treat myself to some chocolate as well while I'm enjoying my popcorn. Who knows? It could be that enjoyable. So this is what one of Jeremy's constituents in North Islington had to say about him, and it really does go to show why he's not your typical careerist, scabby type of politician that Luke Akehurst is. He really is a decent fellow indeed.
He was the first person at my door, and he never left my side. Everybody should vote for Jeremy Corbyn because he have my back. Not only my back, but all of us. And when he's walking the street, he never walked past us. He always acknowledged each and every one of us. When my son got stabbed, I was the first person who came and support me. He sent a message to me by the Friday. Saturday morning, very bright and early, he was the first person at my door. And he never left my side up to a day like today. And every time he meet me and we walk in or wherever, he always asks, Jessica, how are you? How are the children? How are you coping with the loss of your son? And I'm super, super proud of you, Jessica, for the work that you're doing in memory of your son, helping our community. Keep up the good work. And we have his back and we forever support him. And I'm asking everybody in the community to please support Jeremy Corbyn because he's the one.
Yep, that's one of your hot seats there as well. Of course, one of the ones to watch. More on that shortly. The all-seeing My Left Eye. So it's been going well for Corbyn on the campaign trail, but like I said, Keith made a rare public appearance. This is one of his Achilles heels that he has quite a few of course, but this is one of the main ones, is actually engaging with the public and attempting to form some sort of imitation at being some kind of human being. Apparently, according to Angela Rayner, behind the scenes he's actually quite witty and charming and funny. He just seems to utterly shut that down when he's in front of anybody else. Maybe it's like one of those secret superpowers. So he was talking to some members of the public, and one of them, a kid, comes up to him and is complaining that, you know, they can't afford the heating. And during the winter months, they have to put in extra blankets and extra clothes to stay warm, because obviously the stance on renewables is very tame. And if families had renewables, you know, maybe they could have a bit of heating on during the evening at not such a great cost. And Corbyn's response was pretty robotic, unsympathetic and atypical. He tried to... God, it's hard. Let's just watch it.
Well, it's just so in the winter months, we have to sleep with like blankets on our bed and
like a fleece
and like a onesie because it's so much to like pay for the heating, so we don't have to have it on all night.
So you zip yourself into a onesie.
Yeah, and just so
my kids used to do that.
Like don't.
So he's following some, you know, pattern playbook, as it were. Try to make yourself relatable to the people, Oh, okay, you're a child. Me, I have children. Okay, my kid did the same thing that you do. That makes it, yeah, you like me now, okay? So your parents are going to vote for me, right? Yeah, laugh. No, Keith.
My boy's 15 now, 6'1", so I'd have to have quite a big onesie.
My son's 6'1" now, so it'd have to be quite a big onesie. Ha ha ha. Just forgetting about your question about, cuts that I'm going to keep imposing. I'm going to be way behind on renewable energy. Your bills are still going to stay sky high under Labour. But let's just have a bit of a laugh about someone basically wearing an adult romper suit. Yeah, you're right, Divinia Robbins. Thanks for that comment. Thanks for joining us this evening. He's laughing at the kid. He's not laughing with the kid. And the kid actually turned. She says,
"That's right." Is there less treats as well sometimes?
Yeah. Well, it's hard because but it's good that you and Daddy both work. Well,
it's good that both, just to highlight that, both parents are working and they're struggling to pay their energy bills. I think that's worth noting at the end of the clip. Not too sure where this took place. Does look like some sort of seafront. He is notorious for going to piers and pointing out at nothing. Farage made a bit of a TV appearance on a pier as well. So it's all piers and fun places. You had Sir Ed Davey at Thorpe Park, theme park as well. So they're doing the rounds in those kinds of places. Apart from Sunak, who's too busy explaining to Nick Robinson about how crap they are. And I think someone who was on TV earlier today summed warnings about an impending Labour victory up very well. Naomi Klein, who's a professor on climate change. I did mention Keith's lack of innovation where green policies come in there, but she sums this up quite well. This isn't from a specifically environmental perspective, but just generally politically and sociologically why she's got some real concerns about Labour at the moment. She is a professor at University of British Columbia.
I think that the Tories know they're going to lose, and they seem to be practically throwing the election. They've basically written it off, and it seems like Labour is trying not to make any sudden movements and to send lots of reassuring messages that very little really is going to change. And I think if we look at the European elections,
are you disappointed by that?
I am. I'm not just disappointed. I'm worried because if we look at what just happened in Europe, if we look at what Schulz is doing, I'm seeing Labour poised to make the same mistakes, which absolutely I think will win an election, but will set the table for a far-right comeback. That's what I'm worried about. I think the message that we're seeing from Europe is there really need to be policies that meet people's most urgent needs. And this idea of what we're hearing from your leader about these fiscal rules and basically sounding like Margaret Thatcher on running a government.
That's Annalise Dodds there. I'd just like to quickly pose the question to anyone who's watching. You can let us know in the comments if you're watching on a replay. Have you ever seen the comedian Matt Green and Annalise Dodds in the same room? Neither have I.
Like a household, which is ridiculous, is going to set the table for a far-right comeback.
Okay, but yeah, she's quite right there. Sorry about the abrupt end to that clip. But as I said towards the start of the stream, we're seeing this massive rise of the right wing alarmingly happening in countries throughout Europe. And we'd have to make a stand up against that, because if Labour get in, then that just sets them up even further, as Naomi was pointing out there. Just quickly wanted to throw that one your way. Welcome to everybody who's just joined us in the chat as well. Let us know how you're doing tonight. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, etc. Hit buttons, sharing, thumbs up, and so on. I mentioned before there's one more hot seat that I want to talk about potentially adding to the list as well. So let's just quickly remind ourselves of the current list as we go over to hot seats, one to watch. Okay, so these are the latest. Chingford and Woodford Green, Bristol Central, Islington North, which we mentioned earlier on the stream. Rochdale, that's the one that Galloway could potentially be holding, maybe not. Holborn and St Pancras, that's Pancras, not Pancreas. Yeah, Starmer's seat, obviously hoping that Andrew Feinstein comes through there in Ilford North. Wesley Streeting's seat there as well. So could potentially be adding the Luke Akehurst Durham seat to that as well. But also a new one that's sort of been in the periphery of my vision for a while, but just based on local election results as well. And this statistic was released by the Greens just recently also to kind of back it up. Any guesses? Any guesses? Okay, so it's Birkenhead. Birkenhead. Obviously, there's a very different structure from local elections to general elections, but that appears to be a two-horse race to me. That appears to be a two-horse race to me. I've predicted in my early predictions video, you know, asterisks, some of them are subject to change, but my early feelings are that the Greens are likely to get around 5 seats, 4 or 5 seats. I said 5 in the video, to be honest, as a sort of max. I'd be surprised if they got any more than that, but I wouldn't have anything to say against it, that's for sure. So they look to be ahead, according to how the public have voted in local elections. They're putting on a pretty good election campaign so far. They seem to be one of the only parties who haven't had things to answer for as well. And pretty sound socialist leaning manifesto. Obviously, you know that green policies, environmental policies are one of the things at the forefront of what I'm looking at this election. So let us know what you think about that one as well. I don't know, it's it would be, I think I'd be rushing into things to just base it off of that one stat as well. We're going to have to see. The thing is, you know, I obviously always prefer projections to polls. So I'm sure a lot of you know. I think Labour are going to get a pretty tough time just in that general area, though. In lots of areas of the northwest, Merseyside, Lancashire, Greater Manchester, Yorkshire. A lot of people are very wary up in the north. Very wary of Starmer. And if you've got any suggestions as well, of course, you're always welcome to throw those my way, either in the chat or in the comments, or on social media as well. You can check us out on Twitter, MyLeftEye UK. Please do so. All right, that's going to bring us towards the end of the stream. I just want to end by thanking you all for being here this evening. I'm going to give a shout out to our amazing members as well, and a very warm welcome to those of you who've joined as members during the stream. I'll make certain that your names are added to this list of incredible people the next time we're on the Brews at 10. and also at the end of videos as well. That's just one of the perks of being a member here on My Left Eye. You've been fantastic in the chat. Thanks for being polite, etc. And I think I'm going to be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Just a reminder, these Brews at 10 streams are weekdays only, as many weekdays as I'm free to do at 10 PM. There is, of course, still the regular Sunday night live stream as well. Do check that out, and check out some of our other long play content as well. Just want to thank all of our members for continued support. Also, thanks to those recently who've gifted memberships to other viewers. That's a great way to show solidarity. And there's more manifestos to come out, etc. Lots happening with the election and in the news as well. So lots to talk about as we go through the week. Alright, this feels a bit weird doing it without the fondue lounge, but I did say I was going to stick to just doing Keith's fondue lounge in the Sunday live streams. For those of you who don't know what it is, we normally just go in. There's a bit of a sort of parody scene there with some jovial music in the background while we all get introduced. And Mithril, thanks a lot for your continued membership over the last 2 months as well. Great to see you back here tonight as well. I'll just play the penny mode on solo clapper clip one more time, just so we can enjoy that moment, and then I'll wish you all a good evening. So until next time, everybody, take care, and My Left Eye will be seeing you soon. Good night.
We will cut your taxes. We will protect your pension. And we will defend this nation. For a more secure future, vote Conservative.
Catch you later, people.